Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling well, something that sits quietly behind almost everything in the global economy.
It's a mission, really. We're digging into the source material on the big three asset managers.
BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. We want to understand how these firms got so powerful, and maybe more importantly, why they seem to be completely untouchable.
And it all starts with one number, a really, really big number. Our sources all point to it. Combined, we're talking about roughly $20 trillion in assets under management.
20 trillion. Okay, let's just pause on that. That number is so big, it's basically meaningless without context.
Right. Let's try to frame it. $20 trillion is more than the entire GDP of China. It's bigger than the U.S. federal budget for more than a decade. I mean, this isn't just a pile of money, it's the largest concentration of financial power in history.
And because of that scale, they're not just investors anymore, are they?
Not even close. They're the top three shareholders in something like 90% of the S&P 500.
90%. So think about that for a second. The phone you're using, the bank that holds your mortgage, the gas in your car. Chances are these three firms are the biggest owners.
Exactly.
So today we have three big questions we really need to answer. First, how does this weird circular ownership loop they've built make them legally bulletproof?
Second, why can't old school antitrust laws, the kind that broke up giant monopolies, even touch them?
And third, and this is the big one, why is it basically politically impossible to even try to break them up?
Okay, let's get into it. And to understand that $20 trillion fingerprint, you have to start with the biggest player on the board, BlackRock.
Right, BlackRock, run by Larry Fink. They're managing about 10 trillion of that 20, all by themselves.
10 trillion, that alone is more than the economies of Japan, Germany, and the UK combined.
And they're managing this money for everyone. Pension funds, huge insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds.
But to really get their power, you have to look past the money and at the technology. You have to look at Aladdin.
Aladdin. Yeah. The Asset Liability Debt and Derivative Investment Network. It's their proprietary risk management system.
It's the central brain of the operation. And here's the kicker, the part that's truly terrifyingly centralized.
It doesn't just manage BlackRock's own $10 trillion, does it?
No,
Yeah.
not even close. The sources we have say Aladdin is assessing risk for nearly $21 trillion globally.
Wait, say that again. So central banks, their own competitors, pension funds, they all plug into BlackRock's system to figure out their own risk.
That's it. Exactly. And that raises a huge question. I mean, if the entire global system is using one single model to calculate risk,
Then that model is the market. It's not just assessing risk, it's basically telling $21 trillion where to go and what to avoid all at the same time.
it forces everyone to behave the same way. It actually centralizes systemic risk instead of distributing it. That's a key piece of their power that most people just miss.
And you see that power in how they own entire industries, this idea of horizontal consolidation.
Oh, it's staggering. In tech, for example, their combined stakes are, I mean, listen to this, 22.4% of Apple, 20.5% of Microsoft, 20.1% of Google.
They own the whole ecosystem. And it's not just tech.
No, it's everywhere. Energy. They own over 23% of ExxonMobil and over 24% of Chevron. You think you're choosing between competitors.
Like Coke and Pepsi.
They're the biggest shareholders in both. Pfizer and Moderna, Ford and GM. You choose a side and the money flows back to the same place.
And this isn't just passive ownership. This is where it gets real. Larry Fink's annual letter to CEOs.
Yeah, that letter is not a suggestion. It's a directive. It's a command. Because BlackRock has the votes to fire the entire board if they don't comply.
Like in 2020, when the letter demanded net zero commitments.
And what happened? Within months, you saw this wave of corporations pledging net zero. Not because of a new law, but because their biggest owner told them to. That letter has more force than legislation.
Okay, so let's shift to the second piece of this puzzle, to Vanguard and this idea of a closed loop, a circular ownership.
Right. Vanguard is a totally different beast. They manage about $7.5 trillion, but their structure is the key. It's genius in a way.
They don't have external shareholders, right? They're owned by their own funds.
Exactly. Which means they're effectively owned by the money they manage. They own themselves.
So who holds them accountable? You can't have a shareholder revolt.
That's the point. They're immune to that kind of pressure. Their only goal is to lower costs and track the market. It makes them structurally invisible to a lot of the usual regulatory oversight.
Okay, now here's where it gets really tangled. Vanguard, this self-owned island, is the single largest shareholder in BlackRock.
It owns almost 8% of its biggest competitor. And now we bring in the third piece of the triangle, State Street.
State Street, 4.1 trillion.
They're the plummet.
Right, that's the term everyone uses.
It is, but it really undersells it. State Street is the custodian. They physically hold the assets, the stocks, the bonds for BlackRock and Vanguard. They handle all the back office work, the settlements.
And the proxy voting paperwork, the actual mechanics of control.
Right. They're the indispensable infrastructure. And who are State Street's biggest owners?
Let me guess. Vanguard and BlackRock.
You got it. Vanguard at 7.8%, BlackRock at 4.5%. So let's just trace that loop.
Okay. Vanguard is the biggest owner of BlackRock.
Vanguard and BlackRock are the biggest owners of State Street.
And State Street provides the essential plumbing that lets both of them operate.
It's a perfect closed triangle. They all vote on each other's shares. They're locked together.
It seems like it's designed to be unbreakable. I mean, if regulators went after BlackRock,
Vanguard would have a legal duty to protect its investment. An attack on one is a financial attack on the others. They're three companies on paper, but functionally, they're one entity.
which brings us to the next big question. Why can't antitrust laws touch this? We broke up Standard Oil, which controlled 90% of one industry. How can these guys control 90% of every industry?
It comes down to a really subtle but incredibly powerful legal distinction. It's all about ownership.
What do you mean?
Think about Standard Oil. John D. Rockefeller owned the refineries. He owned the pipelines. Physical things. You could literally break them up and sell them off.
They were tangible assets.
Exactly. And our antitrust laws were written for that world, to break up monopolies over physical property.
But the big three don't own Apple or Microsoft in that same way.
Precisely. This is the whole loophole. Legally, they are just the managers of the shares. The actual owner is the pension fund, or you with your 401k. They're just agents, fiduciaries.
So you can't force them to sell a share of stock that legally belongs to a retired teacher somewhere.
You can't. The law wasn't designed for this. It wasn't designed to break up managers of intangible assets. And the thing is, this concentration wasn't even built through hostile takeovers. It was structural.
It just happened because of the shift to index funds.
That's it. Everyone, very rationally, started moving their money into cheap, passive index funds that track the whole market. But who runs almost all of those funds?
BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street.
So every time someone invests for retirement, they are, by default, funneling more power into this exact structure. It was consolidation by a million tiny logical decisions.
Which leads to the final, and maybe the most effective, barrier. Political immunity. Even if you could change the law, you can't actually do it.
You can't. This is the essential wall. Imagine a politician proposes a bill to force the big three to sell off trillions of dollars in assets.
The market would crash.
Yeah.
Instantly.
It would be a catastrophe. You would risk the complete collapse of the retirement savings of millions of Americans. Their 401ks, their pensions, everything.
So no one is ever going to vote for that.
Yeah.
No politician is going to tell their voters, I'm about to destroy your life savings. They are literally too important to the retirement system to ever break up.
And it goes deeper. They're woven into the fabric of the government itself. We talked about Aladdin. The Federal Reserve uses it.
BlackRock advised the Fed during the 2008 crisis and again in 2020. They're not just a company. They're part of the state apparatus now.
They're a quasi-governmental utility. They're the emergency responders and the architects of the system. They're just indispensable.
So let's bring this all back to you, listening right now. What does this actually mean for your daily life?
It means that the idea of consumer choice is, in many ways, an illusion. You pick Apple over Google, Exxon over Chevron, Chase over Bank of America.
And the money all flows up to the same small group of shareholders. You're just choosing which pocket to put it in.
And when you check your 401k, no matter what fund you're in, a piece of your own wealth is flowing into this system, reinforcing its control. You are a mandatory tributary.
So what they've built is, well, it's the perfect monopoly, isn't it?
It really is. It's invisible because you don't see a BlackRock logo on your iPhone. It's legal because of that manager versus owner loophole. And it's essential because breaking it would crash the entire retirement system.
And it's not slowing down. The projections show them managing over $30 trillion by 2030, maybe $50 trillion by 2040. They're going from being the largest shareholder to being the majority owner.
Which is why some of our sources call this the greatest wealth transfer in history. It's a move from ownership by individuals to control by institutions. And it all rests on that one little legal idea that they're only managing the shares, not owning the companies. So I guess the final thought for you to chew on is this. If three interconnected firms effectively set the policy for 90% of the market, how does that technical distinction between managing and owning change what a free market even is?